Welcome to Framework and our ongoing, concluding coverage of The Shield from the aughts, the great cop anti-hero drama that we've been talking about all year. Seasons 1 through 6, all done, leaving the last season here, season 7, the final season. One of the most, if not the most acclaimed, beloved, acknowledged great finales for a show of all time. I mean, right off the front, I think that's worth acknowledging right away. I am John, one of the hosts of Framework. With me, as always, the other host of Framework, Al. How you doing, Al?
Oh, I'm all right. Still got a sick kid here, but we are doing. I mean, I needed something to do during my quarantine time, and what better than this? Like you said, one of the best finales ever. I don't think there's any dissenting view on this particular podcast that this is the best series finale of any long-running show.
Well, I mean, that's the question. We got to get into that. And of course, joining us for we've been here for the entire Shield journey. Chris Prentice, welcome back.
Oh, it's good to be here. I can't believe we're at the final season. It's been a joy looking back on this show. I'm tearing up at the thought that this is probably the last time I will ever have an hour and a half discussion on the Shield or of any sort.
Oh, that might be true.
Hard.
That's something I've noticed as I've been watching this all year. I've kind of wanted to talk about this, and if I try, beyond you guys who are watching it with me, no one is really ready to have a Shield conversation. I've found.
Right.
It's a little memory hold, I'm afraid. Yeah, which is a shame.
This is why we did this, though. So, Chris, where do you stand? Is this just great or greatest in terms of finales?
Yeah, finale wise, at least for a drama, yeah, this is the top one. There's, the Sopranos one gets kind of ripped just because of the very end of it, but I mean, I think that's a great finale overall. But I think, man, the way, I think a lot of times when shows go over their usual runtime for their finales, it kind of gets in trouble because it's like they're really kind of messing with things. They think they're a movie now, and but this one was like a 75-minute finale, and I think they probably could have gone 90 if they wanted to.
Yeah, they earned it.
The Shield never really trucked with that.
No.
I'm sorry to tell you this, guys, up front. We're going to talk about Sons of Anarchy a fair amount today.
I know.
Oh, okay.
By way of contrast, that is one thing that show, in the lineage of the Shield, certainly.
Sure.
In the continuity of the Shield, if you're really into it. But yeah, they went way, not just for the thing we always gripe about them is that they didn't do it for finales. They would also do it for premieres. And then as the show went on, just random episodes
all the time
would be 80 minutes long. The Shield hardly ever did that. I think maybe one other time before the finale, maybe zero.
Maybe two. There's a few 50-minute episodes in there.
It was
that's
rare.
what I said. They're not 87-minute episodes, though. Even the finale is bit like an hour and a little bit of change. But we are... So I guess, you mentioned this is season 7, and in saying that this possibly the best season they ever did.
Yeah.
Is 7 kind of a magic number for a long running drama? Are there any shows that went over 7 seasons and ended well?
Ooh, good question. I mean, I was thinking no.
Maybe even too long a little bit.
Most shows have 4 to 5 seasons at the most in them. And once they go beyond that, it's a rough road downhill. I mean, I'll even say it. I mean, as much as it's lauded and I love it, I think The Wire maybe went a season too long. I thought their final season was not so hot, and I don't think they had.
It's their worst season.
Yeah, yes. It's consensus the weakest. I don't think it's bad by any stretch. And I feel a little the same way about Breaking Bad. That one's.
I'll disagree with that. I think it ends.
There's some great stuff in the 5th season, and the first season got cut off abruptly by writer strike, so it doesn't feel fair to weight it against the others. But I think that it sort of hit a natural crescendo around season 4, and felt, of course, making these comparisons is also the waters get muddied because the Shield is also one of the only shows that didn't mess around with we're gonna do 2 short seasons and call them 6A, 6B, 5A, 5B. I mean, they kind of did that with seasons 5 and 6 were supposed to be made at the same time, and but they just called them 5 and 6. And one of the things we talked about actually last time too is that season 6 is a weirdly structured season, and there's a way that looking at the structure of season 6 and 7, they're almost more 3 smaller seasons rather than 2 full-size seasons, because you have the aftermath from the end of season 5 through Chasing Ghosts, and then you got the back stretch of season 6 and the opening 4 episodes of this season. And that's the roughest part of the season by far. Obviously, I think we're all in agreement with that. I mean, I will say for this stretch though, the show opened with a bang. Like the season, literally the first scene, Shane walks in the door, Mara is visibly pregnant and tied up on the couch, and just the strike team is at each other's throats here, like with zero delay.
And yes, I think that by default the first 4 seasons have to be the worst part of this season, but they're pretty good, man. They pick up the ball from season 6, and they are a better version of what season 6 was doing.
Yes,
it is kind of just a brief opportunity to just see the Shield operating as it usually does before the real end game stuff starts.
Right.
And even then, it's right in the middle of a gang war that the strike team has created, so the stakes are actually higher than usual, even if it seems less than the other stuff. It's wild. It does have one problem, which is that the leaders of the various gangs are not particularly well cast. That's a problem from season 6. We talked about Rezian, who actually seems even worse in season 7, and Pizuela is never particularly interesting either, which is a shame. But otherwise, I think those are pretty good episodes. I think the opening here is pretty solid.
It's clearly an undercard. I mean, if you're you got if you're buying tickets for Hogan and Andre the Giant, you're going to have to sit through Coco Beware against Nikolai Volkov. It's just the way it goes. You got to sit there and enjoy it, and that's what those opening episodes are. We know that there's bigger stuff on the horizon, and I do definitely agree that it's still the Armenian stuff is not very compelling, but it is better than what they were doing at the end of season 6. It has a little more weight to it, and they did improve upon it at least.
Well, yeah, because they've involved Vic and Ronnie now, entirely, because it was kind of Shane dealing with it on his own at the end of the 6th season. We lose Franca Potente in the transition, unfortunately, but that's just sort of a contractual thing.
Said all viewers.
But she's better than Hyatt. No.
Well, I mean, we're not fucking with Franca Potente or Hyatt anymore. Hyatt just unceremoniously disappeared off to the Planet X with Hyatt.
Potente literally does that between seasons. It's like, she fucked off back to Europe or something. And
I thought she got killed off screen. I thought that's what was going on with it's not clear.
It's not even clear. Yeah, she's just gone. And they realize it doesn't matter. They have so much else to deal with. I mean, I think, Chris, you may say it dismissively that it's the undercard, it's the bouts you have to sit through. I really do think that for as much as these first 4 episodes are the weakest part of the season, they are kind of necessary for the season. Not just to get the plot strands in order, but in a more general sense to sort of tease the idea that this is going to be a more typical Shield season. Whose construction we're more familiar with, and then to blow that up so thoroughly, not even halfway into the season. It's episode 5, 6 where things really spiral out of control quickly, and then it becomes this whole other thing where it's like, oh shit, we are definitely in the end game now. Like there's no reversing some of these things that are happening. But in these first couple episodes, it seems like maybe they're going to find ways to reverse some of this. That even after that opening I'm talking about, where the strike teams at each other's throats in the opening scene, Shane's still working with Vic and Ronnie again for the next couple episodes.
They are laying the groundwork, though. They're laying the groundwork for what they're going to do, largely with Vic's character. I mean, they've been doing that the entire time, but we're seeing him in situations like him with Danny and their kid. Right. That's a new side of Vic. That's just showing like, oh well, of course she would want nothing to do with him, when his fuck up daughter Cassidy shows up at her house, stuff like that, and she's just like, okay, I don't want this man anywhere near the kid, and she brings him the papers, and he's like, oh really, you don't want me near you, huh? And it becomes a whole thing, and they start talking about like, you're just fighting to fight, you don't have to fight everything, Vic, doing little subtle things to show like he is losing control of every aspect of his life, and in ways he can't quite perceive. Like it's all just moving a little too fast now, and he is stretched too thin with the gang war he is fomenting, and all the other things as well with Shane, etc. And the blackmail box, all of it.
Oh yeah, I mean that the plan to start the war between the Mexican and Armenians, it really escalates quickly. It gets out of hand so fast. It's literally one scene. Like after laying out the plan where Vic's spinning out and in the car going, how did this get away from us? These first like 4 or 5 episodes, like just the number of different games Vic is running between different combinations of people is like, okay, he's lying to Corinne and the captain of the barn about everything he's doing, because of course he is. That's that's Tuesday. That's Tuesday.
Yeah.
He's also working with Rezian against the Mexicans to pay off his money train debt, but he's also setting up Rezian to get him killed once they're done. I don't know why they need to pay off the debt before they kill him, but maybe it's the opportunity. Again, this is so complicated that it all gets away from me very quickly, even though I just watched it and took some notes.
It all made sense while I was watching it, but I would have a hard time explaining it. Yes.
Well, I'm trying to explain it. He's also working with Pezuela against the Armenians and against Aceveda, but he's also setting up Pezuela to take a fall
with
down
ice.
the line.
Yes.
Because he's also working with Aceveda to help Pezuela and the cartel, but to set them up later. He's also working with Olivia to go around Aceveda and Claudette's backs to make another deal on top of that the deal he's doing with Aceveda and he's working with Shane to help the Armenians and to bust the Mexicans, is what he's telling him. That he's also working with Ronnie to help the Armenians and to hurt the Armenians and to help and hurt the Mexicans, and also against Shane.
Yep. I think you got it all there.
I think that's everything.
It's a lot of plates to spin.
And deal with his kids from 2 different mothers.
Yeah.
With various protracted court battles being threatened in most cases of those scenes. And yeah, his daughter Cassidy, Michael Chiklis' actual daughter, of course. I think she gets a bad rep. I think you have to write this character this way, and it's appropriate. That she is a complete fuck up because of the horrible home life that she's grown up in. And that is another chicken coming home to roost.
How do we feel about the actors or creators? Sometimes I feel like this happens, children playing the children of the protagonist anti-hero. Like we saw it with Justified.
Justified was the worst. This one, I mean, at least we had seen Chiklis's daughter, throughout the run, so it wasn't like totally jarring when they kind of gave her a little more material here. I mean, I won't say that she's particularly good, but it wasn't like the new Justified. It wasn't that level of bad. So,
well, she's not precocious. She seems like a real kid,
right?
Fucking up in real ways, so that helps.
I guess I'm talking about something basic here. Like, is it worth having a raw actor just because they also have a built-in relationship with their parent who that does come through? Like, I mean,
yeah,
even just physical resemblance, you can see that some Chiklis in her.
That poor girl.
Sure.
There's something gained there, but also, I don't know. I mean, they never do this with a child character that's going to be really central to the plot. This is not like you're not going to do that with Sally Draper. Oh yeah, right. Okay. I was thinking about TV and prestige TV more than Apatow comedies,
but yeah, no, it's I mean, you could make the argument that Kathy Callan Ryan is kind of there as a it's that too. It's his wife. But she's great. She's terrific on the show.
She's quite good.
An essential part of the show in the ultimate, like everything they ask of her, which is considerable, she nails pretty good. And I can't imagine the show without her. So, I mean,
except this is her best season too.
Oh yeah,
as an actor. I mean,
Well, way better than the burger scene of season 6. So she at least recovered from the burger Lem dream sequence.
You're so triggered by that dream
Uh,
sequence. Not even a dream sequence, a dream recounting sequence.
like I don't think that she's bad, and I think she is better in this season. But man, she has one line in the final season where where they're kind of breaking it down to her what she's got to do to kind of get out of the trouble that she's in. And I mean, she just has this real screeching line where she's just like, what am I gonna do? I have children. And I don't know, for the most part she was fine, but every now and
No,
again
I mean,
she'll have a line that just it's like nails on the chalkboard.
She's breaking down completely. Yeah.
You're going to see
know.
those lines are going to pop up occasionally that it feels like that line could come straight off like an anti-hero TV wife soundboard,
Yeah.
Yeah. But I just think, I don't know. I don't know that I was super impressed with her as an actress in the earlier seasons, but I think, I don't know. Is this the best season for anybody else? I mean,
Vic, maybe.
I would say Chickless.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Goggins is always so good.
I think he's
had better seasons.
This is the best Ronnie season. The best Ronnie season. for sure.
Best Ronnie
season.
Well,
yeah, last season's good too. Yeah, okay, definitely Ronnie. Definitely Ronnie, and I would say Corinne, and Goggins. I think he spends the whole back half of the season sort of separated from the strike team, and
he has to do
Mara. So
Mara,
yeah, I mean, I guess best for her for whatever that's worth.
Sure, yeah,
not much.
I don't know.
It's not the best for Claudette or Dutch, though. I don't think
Claudette has a pretty good season. Probably not the best Claudette season, but it's pretty good. It's probably not Dutch's best, although I think it is a good Dutch season. And yeah. And
I'm surprised how good a season it is for Aceveda, actually.
He's pretty awesome. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I kind of remembered feeling the first time through like Aceveda was really sort of vestigial to the show after in the back half. Like, wow, they could have just written Aceveda out of here by now. Like, they really been nowhere backwards to keep this guy around. Mm-hmm. And this time, I don't know. He's much more central than I recall. The things he does actually tie into the main plot in a way that feel more organic than I had remembered. And maybe also just having like his winning the primary and going on to city council stretched out over like 6 years of real time felt like it was treading water more. But now I'm like, oh yeah, no, he won a primary. There's a gap before the general election happens, but that's a foregone conclusion in LA politics. Like maybe I know a little bit more about politics and am more aware of the compressed timeline of the show. I'm like, yeah, okay. He's only a year out from being the captain, even 3 seasons later.
It starts moving a lot faster. Yeah.
He's very good at playing a politician who's just kind of an opportunist and who's, just doing whatever he can to get that seat that he wants. I mean, my favorite scene with him this year was towards the end of the season when he's in Claudette's office and he's like, kind of trying to almost like be buddy with her, saying, we worked real hard to try to take down this guy, and just the way Claudette just kind of humors him, and that was my favorite Aceveda scene of the whole season.
Most of his scenes, if not all of his scenes, have some level of deception going on in them, and that's it's not uncommon for characters in this show, but it's like every scene with Aceveda, and he plays those very well, always, on the giving or receiving end of it. And I'm impressed at you could probably write a version of this season that does not involve him nearly as much, but I think he only adds to it. All his stuff is good and interesting. And if anything, the only thing I'm missing is there's not much of a resolution with him. In fact, I think the use of Andre Benjamin in the final episode kind of like, well, you could have just put him in another episode, maybe.
He could have been
it's a little too late for this guy now. But even that's a good idea. I just kind of wanted it to land somewhere. I mean, I guess we assume he becomes mayor, I guess.
Yeah, the characters seem to.
Yeah.
You didn't enjoy Andre Benjamin's sick burn by calling him Mr. Asses Veda?
No, I like that. I like that
Oh,
very
okay.
much. I just,
Okay.
it's just in episode 13 of season 7 of The Shield, I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I care about this guy that we're
No.
meeting right now.
I did not
we
like
did see
that.
him
I don't really
before.
like it when my political figures work blue, but I did enjoy the prop comedy of sticking coins in his ears to simulate
Well, that's
what the world
really
sounds
did
like to
me.
Aceveda.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm taking a very Branson, Missouri approach to this performance. All right. Is there any other business that we need to? I guess there's some, end of series business being done in that opening stretch where we're having the return of Farah to do sort of a final capper on Vic's relationships to women and how that can be weaponized against him, his blind spots there for in a savior complex.
It's probably the
then
one
there's, of course-
episode I would cut from this. It has value, has a use ultimately, but
Yeah.
the point has been made.
I was glad that they brought Tavon back for one episode just to. I don't know. I thought that guy was a good actor, and I thought he was a good character, and I thought that they could have done way more with him on this series, and but at least having him come back for one episode was good.
See, I remembered finding that to be kind of a weak attempt at that again the first time through, and feeling like that it was something that was done out of a sense of obligation that like just fans were always like, oh, but what about when Tavon comes back for seasons and seasons? And it's like, well, maybe you could have just let him be the Russian on The Sopranos, because you don't have a way for him to really do anything that dramatic or important to the final conflict. So I kind of thought that at the first, originally, 15 years ago, that it wasn't worth the trouble of bringing him back. This time I found I was more open to it because one, I get, the resolution of that. He does remember it. And he confronts Shane with it and then doesn't do anything with it except for tell him, I know exactly who you are, and then walk off. And I felt like that was a little bit of weird. Like you don't see the Shield bunt on something like dramatic like that very, very often. And that struck me as weird the first time around. This time I'm kind of like, actually it is more appropriate in as much as like Shane would at that point would probably welcome a beating from Tavon, and it would allow him to feel like they were square somehow, and he could actually close that on that. So Shane would be getting off easier in a way. But it ties into something that really struck me as I was looking at this, which is the odd sense of restraint that the Shield has, because that's not a word that you would put in a Shield word cloud, right? You don't think of this as being a very restrained show.
No.
And particularly like in season 7, especially, the primary strength of this season is that it doesn't back down from any conflict outside of Tavon. And, like a lot of shows, for a variety of reasons, if it's purely commercial, perhaps, they'll walk up to a lot of ledges and then find ways to scoot back from them, and this season is so great because it plays everything out to its just final apocalyptic fullest extent. And that's what brings me to Sons of Anarchy. And you guys, I'm sorry, but now is the time for our Sons of Anarchy sidebar.
Oh, dear Lord.
Because I have spent so much time in quarantine lately, I actually
Don't
say it. No, you did not.
I watched the series finale of Sons of Anarchy.
Oh my god!
Just the finale. Okay,
just the series finale.
Okay, I was really scared for a
purposes.
second there. Okay.
Now I know you guys both watched 7 full seasons of Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah, I
correct?
did. Yeah.
And
I liked most of it too.
Right.
I like.
Well, here's the challenge though, because I know you also watched 7 seasons of The Shield, and The Shield ended about 15 years ago. Sons of Anarchy ended about 10 years ago, so it should be fresher in your mind, hypothetically. And I know both you guys remembered the final, position fate of every main character from The Shield, give or take a Danny or a Julian, but every member of Strike Team, you could tell me who died, who lived, who ended up where, and probably what season, what episode that happened.
Right.
Can any of you tell me what happens in the series finale of Sons of Anarchy?
I know Jax gets smashed, by Chickless in the truck.
Yeah, of course.
That's
in full Jesus crucifixion. Horrible Kurt Sutter song. The whole deal. I believe Michael Chiklis screams Jesus right before he hits him. I think
Yeah,
Is
he
that-
does.
While he's doing the Jesus pose.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
Oh.
I
Okay, so you remember
he
the
kills
last
Peter
10 seconds of
Weller.
the show.
He kills Peter
Okay, you
Weller.
remember? Okay, this was the challenge. Do you remember anything else he was doing in that finale?
I think
Who were his
killing
final
people.
enemies?
Killing other people, right?
Yes,
I only
he goes on a
remember
killing
Weller.
spree.
But yeah, I remember him killing a lot of folks.
Okay.
But he was still a good hero, of course.
Well,
But
he
didn't
was a Jesus figure or something.
the Kim Coates character, like, did he end up
he makes it
going with? No, but he end up being with the Walton Goggins transsexual character that
Yes,
people
Oh,
probably
wow.
yes.
Oh,
Okay,
in the
I-
final morose musical montage, he
Okay.
is crying in the lap of Venus Van Dam.
That's pretty good. Okay.
Okay, so yes, Jax goes on a murder spree, right? You're right. Peter Weller is
Right.
one of them. You had me on there because I did not remember that. I thought that would have been resolved maybe a season or two earlier, but I just got jumbled up.
I don't
The
remember
other,
anyone
like-
else he kills. I just remember he kills a lot of people.
There's some Irish guys,
okay.
and
Sure.
There's always some
Like
Irish guys.
Were the
the
ones who kidnapped
replacement-
Abel? Was it them?
Oh.
no, this is
They were long dead.
Old,
long dead at that
long
point.
dead,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The
This is
ones who put
75 plot twists down the line.
the ones who put the keg bomb in the clubhouse. Maybe I think it's maybe those guys.
Oh wow.
Maybe.
Wow. Okay.
I didn't go back and watch whole seasons.
Oh.
And the other guy is Harold Perrineau's replacement in the One-Niners as leader. That's the other big target at the end.
Perrineau
there.
was on that. Okay.
I remember him.
Yeah,
on
Harold
there.
Perrineau was in one of the seasons.
All right.
Yes.
I believe.
Okay, so the rest of the episode is him like
Chibs?
doing his goodbye
Yeah.
tour
Right.
because he knows he's going to off himself
Mhm.
doing all this stuff, right? Do you know who his big emotional goodbyes are with in that?
Everyone
finale.
he cared about was dead at that point, as far as I remember.
Yeah.
I know, no idea.
Nope.
Abel,
Me either.
I don't know.
Me either.
It's basically okay. Chibs, you were right. You mentioned Chibs.
Yeah, he assumes the mantle of leadership of the Sons of Anarchy. I remember that.
Okay, you remember more of this than I do.
Okay.
With Kim Coates as his vice president.
All right. Oh,
They're
okay.
the only survivors from the original group from the beginning of the series. And otherwise, other than that, it's like Jimmy Smits's, stepfather character.
Oh God, I forgot all about him.
Wow.
Okay.
Oh, he was
And,
great though. I did
and-
love him on the show.
He was a high point of the end of that run. I remember him being
yeah.
good. Yeah,
He
now
was
that I think
great.
About it.
Andrea De Matteo is, mother of his
Oh,
child
sure.
that he
okay.
had
Sure. Okay,
sort of gotten
yeah.
back together with, I guess, at the end
Yeah,
of the show.
after Maggie Siff died, they kind of wrote her back in more.
Yeah. And that's about it.
That's
so
it.
this is
Sorry, everybody. For
this one
talking
time about restraint and what the shield, because the cool thing about the shield, the most important relationships, Vic and Shane, Vic and Aceveda, Vic and Ronnie at that point, because he's representing just the strike team as a concept.
Mhm.
Those are all still in play in the series finale.
Yeah.
And Sons of Anarchy had gotten so out of control, like had so little control over its own plot lines that by the time we get to the end of that, all of the most memorable conflicts and relationships of that show have already been resolved.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, not even really memorable ways. Like, do you remember how Clay Morrow went out, or Bobby or Juice? Like,
I just remember,
I remember
Clay.
Clay.
I remember Clay
Mhm.
and just
It wasn't
thinking that
good.
they killed him off way too early. Like that should have been finale type stuff. But as
well,
for
it was
like
too early and too late
Yeah,
Well,
too early
yeah.
and too late. You're right. Mhm.
because they had done too much with him. They pushed him out too far to the point where, well, now he's been exiled from the club, and he's no longer as big of a threat as he was when he was actually in charge of things. And now Jax is in charge. So what does he do? Now Clay is the underdog, and that doesn't work very well. But also, yeah, it's too early because it was the end of the second to last season. So now we're gonna do a whole other season with what as the conflict? Who's the, it's too much. And that was a chronic problem. I feel like that Sons of Anarchy had that the Shield does not. That
No.
No,
that would show
no.
it spread out ahead of itself and escalate these plot lines and these conflicts really wildly, and only to realize it pushed things too far and it wasn't ready to actually lose this character or this conflict, and have to do this really unconvincing backpedal away from all the consequences that it set up. And then it would realize a season later that the character had been ruined by this, and now they'd outlived their usefulness and their credibility, and they'd kill them off kind of suddenly or perfunctorily, and It's just,
And
trading them in for shock value.
And then the episodes are an hour and 45 minutes long on top of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the Shield, for all of its gonzo-ness, does not have this issue. It
Not at all.
escalates
No.
really, in
No.
hindsight, the seasons escalate really almost cleanly. Is a weird, again, these are weird words to use, but exactly. I mean, with the exception of season 6, it's got some of those kind of pains we're talking about of, okay, we've hit the end game, but we now need to introduce some more conflict and more antagonists that are not going to have that much credibility behind them because they haven't been around for that long. But it's got its eye on the ball of the conflict within the strike team is ultimately what this is about. And in a way, and sort of with Aceveda. And again, by contrast, the Shield had lost, but by its series finale, had killed off one series regular. I think I mentioned that previously before the series finale. Another thing, in looking up some things on Sons of Anarchy, I saw on the wiki fandom page or whatever, they have kill counts.
Oh,
do you know how many people Vic killed in the course of the Shield?
It's very low.
Oh, I'm gonna guess. Not many. Not many at all.
Very low.
Not directly killed, right? We're talking directly killed.
Yeah. He's got a lot of deaths on his hands.
Yeah.
Under 10, maybe under 5.
I think it's like 4.
It is 6.
Oh, 6. Okay.
6. Okay.
4 named characters. I mean, because you get 2 in the pilot episode between Terry Crowley and Two Time.
Right.
And Guardo and Margos. And then 2 other. And then one is a thug in the final bust in the series finale. And Shane only has 4 before the series finale.
Goodness.
Wow. By contrast, Chibs, one of the more level-headed sons, according to this count, committed over 30 on-screen murders.
Yeah,
more than the whole strike team combined. Jax was over 50.
I remember in particular, thinking Sons of Anarchy, because I think they really amped up the kills in the late seasons. It kind of wasn't so crazy with that early on, but those late seasons, it was if this was actually happening, the National Guard would have been called in to end these biker wars. Right. I mean, it was they were just shooting up whole bordellos, and it was just it was crazy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess that's the
bombings, everything.
Theoretically, the appeal of Sons of Anarchy is that it's blown out and cartoonish, but no, I mean, all we do is complain about it, so it works less good, obviously.
I mean, it'd be one thing if it was just that Grand Theft Auto adaptation all the way through. That would be fine. The big problem with that is that it had a season and a half early on where it was really good, on par with season 3 of the Shield, probably, and so proved it could be this other thing. Is better, and then it became this other worse version of that, which is aggravating 10 years later.
The cast was so appealing and so interesting. You wanted to see these guys in a good show, and it was certainly a successful show. I felt compelled to see what happened to Bobby and Clay and all these guys. And that's why we stuck with it so long. Again, not a problem with the Shield. This was just so exciting to go through. Rewatching it now, I was a little worried that season, knowing where this all would go would have a negative impact on it. This is the second time I've watched it, so I hadn't gone through it again. And, it's hard to kind of place yourself back, not knowing how this ends and be just thrilled week to week on what is going on in this final run of episodes.
Yeah. Cause it's
holy shit with every week.
Yeah.
And,
because like we said, the early ones are like I said, they're the undercard. But boy, I think once you get to Animal Control and Vic and Ronnie try to set up Shane, it's boom, it goes to this whole other level. And oh my God, it's just so good week after week. I mean, episode after episode at that point.
It's basically perfect from there on.
Yeah.
And I think that you're right, that because the conflict keeps escalating and the intensity keeps escalating in a way where you don't think it can anymore. But it does. And I think that relates back to what I was talking about with the weird sense of restraint. I found this quote from Sean Ryan talking about this, where he said, and I think that was a key to the longevity of the show was not trying to say, boy, we did all this outrageous stuff. What can we do that's more outrageous? I think the show became less outrageous over the years. And I think that if we had gone the other direction, I think we would have flamed out quicker. And that, I mean, obviously everything I just said about Sons of Anarchy bears that out. But that is sort of what got me on thinking about that, about restraint. And then that brings you over into the idea of realism, which we've kind of talked about before, right? Like the Shield's like really gritty, but not that realistic.
Right.
And that's fine because,
sure.
I mean, my thing is always that I think when people complain about realism in movies or shows, it's usually they're talking less about real world plausibility than they are about internal consistency. And the Shield is baroque in its grimness. And its grittiness.
It's Greek tragedy. It's it is heightened and extraordinary. And these are demigod figures in a lot of cases.
But it is thoroughly, ruthlessly, internally consistent, and that's what this final season, especially, like you said, you worry about it going back to it. I feel like this is going to feel like a lot of wheel spinning, and I'm really going to feel those gears grinding and all that. But actually, I had a great appreciation for like how many little things, like, oh yeah, and that little bit is why they have to do this other thing, which is going to set up that other thing and lead to that final set of dominoes falling.
It's immaculately
and I know they didn't know all of that. And
right.
They didn't know all of that when they were first putting together season 6 or even the beginning of season 7. But almost everything every piece fits into the puzzle somehow. Maybe one exception to that stood out was there's a part in the earliest part of the season where Vic conspicuously make a point of Vic lifting some blank passports off of the forger when he's looking for Shane. And and then that comes to nothing. Like they never mentioned again. I wondered if they were still toying with halfway through the season. We're still toying with an idea that he was going to like slip that to Ronnie to warn him to flee the country.
Go on the run. Yeah.
Before they decided not to let Vic off that hook.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, that's what Ronnie wanted to do. Ronnie was all for let's jet.
Yeah, the dramatic irony of knowing how this show ends and every scene of Ronnie in season 7.
Yes.
Basically. It's so good. It's so good. It's brutal. It's I mean, he gets everything he deserves, I suppose. But man, does it hurt somehow for some reason.
Well, that's the thing is that's the great thing about the show is that it's everything he deserves, but I wanted Ronnie to get away with it. I wanted him to somehow slip out and just sort of come out with his hands clean. I was all so fine.
Good, though.
Oh, I know.
It's so good what happens.
And he's so close. He's so close to that too. Is the thing. That's what makes it hurt so bad. Like I think I mentioned this before. That Ronnie's end is more upsetting to me than Lem's.
Oh yeah,
and partly because I think there's two big reasons for that. One is like we were just kind of getting under Chris. He gets so close to getting away, whereas Lem, like the vice had been closing for so long that to a certain extent there was a blessed relief to just let him out of his misery. Whereas Ronnie does so much right, like to get away with everything and is so close. And, he brought everything on himself. He did all these things, except he always seemed, he's somehow the least culpable of the strike team.
Right. He's easily, and we've said it before, he's easily the smartest of them. He's the best cop of them. He just kind of happened to fall in with this group, and he just could not get away. And we'll jump ahead just a little bit, but his comeuppance is like, it's the ultimate car crash television where it's like, it's so hard to watch, but I can't look away. Oh my God, it's just brutal.
Well, and just the path they set up to it, my impression that, when he brings up running, my impression is the only reason that Ronnie does not go to Mexico is because it would fuck Vic over. That is it. That is the only reason he doesn't do it. And he just can't bring himself to do that. God, that's good. That is such incredible writing and such great forethought and it's remarkable stuff. Poor fucking Ronnie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's got a line, in the finale when him and Vic are working, and this is after Vic has made his own deal, where he's just like, "Hey, we started this together, let's finish it together." And it's like, oh, and they even kind of linger on Chickless, and he's like, oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get the sense that Vic at that point is just sort of hoping, like, man, couldn't you just like drop a racial slur or something? Do something to be kind of an asshole today, so I can do that sneer behind your back and be like, yeah, it's all right. I'm just fucking this guy over. Like, give me something to work off. And no, he's just a ride or die.
Roddy is doing everything perfpectly, exactly as he should be doing. And
like real friend shit. Yeah,
stepping up. Yeah, in every way possible. The other reason I was going to say that why, which we kind of got into previously too, I think, but why Ronnie's fate hurts us in the audience so much, or at least people like me, is Ronnie is such like a perfect audience identification character in a way because of how he was not developed for so many years, and then the way they did him is that because for 5 years he was sort of just a mute witness / accomplice to the strike team antics, like we in the audience are. We can really imprint on him, and then when they do put some more spotlight on him. They make him, without really like contradicting entirely the wallflower nature of his early character. Like, but actually, he's really smart and really competent and really cool in a way that, like, he's not the big swagger and dick that Vic Mackey is, but in a way that the nerds in the audience can be like, that's who I would be on the strike team. The one that nobody pays attention to, but I get all the jobs done.
Well, the Billings hero worship, all that stuff. Yeah, that's great writing choices throughout with that.
Well, there's another awesome when they after the hit on Ronnie Goes Bad and Billings shows up, and Ronnie's like, oh, I had my date, and we brought her back here, and Billings all, this is your first date ended up here?
This is date one?
yeah. And then Ronnie's all, I'll explain it to you sometime.
And the way he uses he clocks that with Billings and then gets Billings to like feeds him a line about I got some pissed off girl trying to blow me up with Claudette. Could you intercept mail from her for me? That's so good.
Yeah,
it's so much fun.
And I love that Billings fucks that up. And not because it doesn't like work on Billings entirely. Billings is as committed to doing that as he is to anything, which is just not very much. So he just doesn't do it well.
Oh yeah.
And actually, that's a pretty great punchline to that too. Is that Shane had just written a big "fuck you" on a piece of paper and Sharpie and mailed it.
Well, I wanted to just bring up the scene where I believe it's in Parasite where Shane is now fully exposed in that awesome interrogation scene, and where they're talking to the
extraordinary episode.
His accomplice.
Before we do Parasite, can we talk just briefly about the end of Animal Control?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And because this is the moment when, the final act really locks into place. And I remembered it 15 years later, crystal clear, as like, oh, that's one of the best, like, cliffhanger, not even exactly cliffhanger, but just stinger endings of any TV show I've ever seen is.
Yes.
So Animal Control is the one where Vic is enacting his master plan to have the Mexicans wipe out the Armenians and fully get him in with Pezuela and get them out from under the Armenians. And he throws in also, and it's also going to get him in with ICE at the same time because all these spinning plates, that's his deal. That's how he works. And he decides, you know what, we can put some icing on this cake and get Shane killed in this thing too, so that Ronnie and I can be free of him finally and avenge Lem. That's, sort of an afterthought that comes.
Justice for Lem. Yeah.
But it's always the asterisk of some justice for Lem, asterisk, if we can get around to it. So that whole thing, just great stuff there. Ronnie, I don't know what he's doing, shaving the firing pin off of Shane's gun in secret in the barn while his back's turned. And then Vic starts to get cold feet, but Ronnie is just fucking ice cold, will not let him back out of it. Love that stuff. But all that goes down, and by happenstance, Shane survives. The Armenians get wiped out. It seems kind of neat and tidy, like the way Sons of Anarchy would do this. And we're backing away from that. Okay, we're gonna have a few more episodes of wheel spinning, and we'll see what. But the episode ends with him going home, and telling Mara, that Shane and Ronnie tried to kill me tonight, and the worst part is they think I'm too stupid to even know.
Yeah.
And then, cut to black. Executive producer Sean Ryan. It's just like, shit, we're not backing off of this after all.
No.
Just one of the best endings of a show ever.
Absolutely. It's so good. That's like I said, that whole sequence is where the season goes from good to just nirvana. It's like, it's unreal.
Well, the episode immediately after that is Bitches Brew, which is, I think, the weakest episode of the season.
Well,
even that you're getting. Well, I guess that's
the
a
stinger.
little more
That's great.
There was
the stinger. That's great. Yeah.
You're not concerned about Claudette's house and the upkeep.
I think that's an interesting thing to bring in. That's okay. I don't need more of it, but I'm like, oh, she's falling apart a little. Oh no.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I just don't care about the prostitutes anymore.
I don't think they've spent too much time on that, but it does. I guess, could you do that before Animal Control so that Shane has this in his back pocket to put into play? I mean, it's kind of perfect that Shane's has this card to play, and it's an imperfect card because he doesn't have time to get up to organize anything perfect, and he's not Vic, so he wouldn't be able to anyway, probably. But
it's okay. It's a TV show. It's, you come back and you're like, oh, what's going to happen this week? Oh, okay. Case of the week. Okay. But it's involved at the end. It's like, oh, no, it's all important. This is why this is happening. We got to get this guy to go try to kill Ronnie. And so, so it's fine. It's fine. It's,
I love the look Ronnie gives Shane after he breaks, Two Man's jaw. I mean, I don't even know if it was an intentional thing that the drug dealer in the pilot was called Two Time when they're setting up Terry Crowley, and then this guy is Two Man. But yeah, that look is so great. And I mean, again, you think that there's going to be more wheel spinning here, but by the end of the episode, it's like, oh no, we're in here. And then now we're into Parasite.
Yeah.
And Parasite opens I remember the opening of this episode is like, holy shit, one of the best openings of an episode I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, I guess, that I'm especially attuned to this or think over this is it's using my TV brain or movie brain that we talk about against me, where I'm like, this is only episode 6 of the season, and this is the first 5 minutes. This should not be happening at this time of the show. Like, what is going on? And my heart's just racing extra hard because like things are going way too hard, way too fast. So I'm like, and on the one hand, like, Shane's hiding in Vic's room. In his apartment, waiting to cap him when he walks in the door. That's not going to happen. But you could totally buy that Ronnie would get capped.
Sure.
In episode 6
of
the final season.
That could be the thing that sets off the end game. Absolutely. Yeah. Beyond what we already just saw that set off the end game. That's not what happens though. We get the awesome thing where Ronnie's getting laid easily, like you were saying. That's fun. But then the whole episode becomes, it almost feels like a sequel to the big Antoine Mitchell episode in season 4, where it's just the entire barn dealing with an interrogation, and different people coming in and trying different things to get to one point. And there's different motives, and obviously we're watching it play out on Shane's face and Vic's face, who suspects the whole thing is great. And every beat of that is wonderful, seeing Dutch realization of what's going on.
Right.
And the way they're playing off Dutch and using Dutch's take on this to feed different agenda. It's so good. It's just a great ensemble episode. It's thrilling stuff. It's high operating, top 5 ever episode of the show.
It's like
everything that follows is right there too. But that one,
the moments where Shane is like trying to kind of give the don't talk, like it's very minimalist, very just tiny. He's just trying to give the little signal of the don't say nothing, but he can't really do much of anything. It's
and Ronnie is kind of noticing it.
Yes,
it's great.
Yes, that's good. And then when they have, when they haven't gotten anything yet, and then Dutch comes out and he's talking to Vic. and Vic's all, oh, just kind of pretend that we're having a good time here because we know this is all wrapped up, and just play along, and him going back in the room, and then Dutch and Billings, they're like, oh, I think we got everything we need here, right? We can just they start putting their jackets back on, and then Vic's in the other room, and he's just like, there's the worm, take it.
Well, what's great about this too is that in the interim of this episode, between that climax that you're talking about and the opening that I was talking about, you do have those shenanigans. Like the strike team is divided against itself at this point. So you're like, we've seen this scenario before with Vic, trying to sort of protect somebody who's in the interrogation room or buy time to cover their tracks. But now it's Shane working on his own against the other guys, and he pulls it off pretty well under pressure. Like the whole episode goes through, he's finds a way to find the gun and keep it out of Billings and Dutch's hands. And that was the goal that they set up. Like if he can do that, he'll get away with this. Right. And so my TV brain starts to resettle just a little bit after like the tension's been so high, but it's like Shane does everything he was quote unquote supposed to do to cover his tracks. He's in the clear supposedly, except Vic and Dutch still manage to have one last trick. That one, it lets them be smart, which is great to see them, one, work together, which is rare, and two, to see all the characters get to be smart is one of the pleasures of the show. But then it blows up. Like the grenade is in the lap of the show at that point, and it turns out the pin's not going back in. And that is, one of the most stunning sequences in TV history. I think that this episode shocked me more than the grenade in the lap. Because that was something, that was a possibility that had sort of been considered.
Yeah.
I did not see this coming whatsoever. Definitely not at this stage of the game.
And that shot, I mean, the verite style of this show, it's where, you're certainly not getting Sopranos dream sequences, it's going to be, Corinne is going to tell the story of the burger party. Right. We're not going to see the dream of the burger party.
No, thank God.
This handheld style is so well used in Parasite. Just the way it is catching things on the fly. It's shot like The Office, honestly. Like, you just got somebody in the foreground doing something, then the camera moves a little, finds somebody else like 10 feet away doing something else in the back. There's this incredible shot when the guy confesses. Was it Two Man?
Yes.
Which is this? It's the guy. It's on Vic and Shane. Vic in the foreground, Shane in the back.
Yes.
And the guy says, "Oh wait, no, I got one last thing," and it just rack focuses from one to the other.
You see Goggins
realizing
face fall.
it, like that's just
that's
so great. His face falls because
I remembered that shot for 15 years later. I remembered Goggins' face in the mirror saying they think I'm too stupid to even know, and I remembered the shot of his face falling when Two Man starts to crack, and he smiles a little.
Yeah, the first time seeing this. I couldn't believe it. I was like, "Oh, they're doing this now! I can't believe they're doing this now!" And like I think Two Man says, like, "Hold on, is it a crime if somebody forces you to do something?" And it's like as soon as he says it, it's just it's just like I couldn't believe like they're really gonna do this. They're gonna do this right now, and it rocked my world big time.
Yeah, and from then on out, again, we have a half season to go, but Shane is on the run as a fugitive for trying to kill Ronnie and Vic. And also, this episode is even over. Vic also turns in his badge and quits the police force, so he's now not even a cop.
Oh God, that's right. Yeah. That's this episode.
And you're reeling at the end of that episode so hard. Like, I mean, I don't know what to compare it to, like the Red Wedding, almost like in terms of just. It feels like the show is so destabilized at this point. I'm not even sure, like, wait, can they do this? Can they keep going after this? It doesn't feel like you could do 6 more episodes once you've sort of detonated all these bombs.
Yeah, and we still really don't know what happened to the Farmington softball team that year. We don't know what the implications were of that.
I think Internal Affairs got their revenge.
I'm guessing a bad showing. I think that's That's probably going to be an off year for Farmington Softball League.
Yeah, I don't think Billings was doing much in center field that season.
No, I mean, but the key is they lost Ronnie, who's a really important like locker room guy. He's like Lou. He's not the greatest athlete, but he's feeding pitches as the catcher or whatever. I don't know. My baseball knowledge is not that deep, but
so after Parasite, I mean, then we get into the end of the Shield.
Yeah,
which is pretty remarkable. I mean, we're talking about Vic with ice and Shane and Mara on the run. Should we maybe talk about some of the other characters and things going on otherwise in this season before we get into the heart of that?
I mean, I think the only person to talk about other than that is really not Billings, is Claudette. I don't think there's much for Billings going on. Who cares about Tina or Julian?
Well, Julian and Tina are just written off the show at this point.
Yeah,
we have nothing for them.
Done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Other than Julian,
Tina gets one really good scene with
Shane
when she's cornered by Shane when he's on the run, and Paula Garces is really good in that scene. But it's one scene in one of these 6 episodes.
I also like the when Shane goes to contact Billings, and Billings is just like, "Holy shit!" Oh man.
Yeah, I enjoy Billings. I kind of thought his, I've been injured on the job stuff. I wasn't a big fan of that starting the season. It felt a little bit too night court for the Shield. But I like where it gets to, which is just sort of like, oh man, they called my bluff. I need some hot soup. I need some help, Dutch. I like all that very much.
That's pretty good. And I like the actress that plays his lawyer. I feel like I've seen her in a lot of stuff, and she's really good.
Jay Karn's real life wife.
Oh, okay,
is that right? That's nice.
I didn't know. I know that she was the wife of John Lithgow on Dexter. I remember that.
That does. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I can see her there now.
And John Lithgow.
God, yeah.
Calls her a bad name.
I was just thinking it makes the bitch dyke lawyer sound like very polite and restrained.
Yes, very much.
Lithgow line. I've never seen her in a role where she's not just verbally abused like that straight out of the gate. It's the most memorable thing. There's a kind of funny gag on the commentary track. They're talking about her being Jay Karn's real life wife and kind of ribbing him about her being too hot for Dutch. And he says, "Yeah, well, David Snell had the best rip on that, which is that it's terrible casting because it stretches belief that Jay landed her. For Dutch to do it is just completely outlandish."
Yeah, I mean that was what I was thinking. Like knowing that they're married in real life, actually, well, that at least makes a little more sense then. Yeah. I mean, it's
they just wanted to hand him
Dutch
some sort of win.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think he deserves it at this point. I was
that was like his happy ending basically for his character. So I was fine with that. That's nice. Let him get.
But we all kind of think he's going to fuck that up anyway.
Probably,
definitely,
indubitably.
Probably.
Well, the thing about Billy is that the beginning of the season, I don't know, maybe this is just my lawyer training that gets the better of me sometimes, where I don't buy that they tricked him into doing one effective interrogation and that kills his lawsuit dead immediately.
Yeah, that's not great.
No, that's not dispositive of anything. It's not a strong lawsuit to begin with, but the fact that he could still be periodically effective would not harm his case in any way. In my opinion. The other stretch of that is to go over into Claudette's realm here. The idea that a police officer being on lupus medication would have any chance at overturning a murder confession is the thing that 15 years ago, felt like a bit of a stretch, but he kind of excused it for the purpose of drama. 15 years later now, it just feels entirely fanciful. Now it's become so obvious that the arresting officer could have been proven to be high on mescaline and admitted to planting the evidence, and the conviction would be a lock still.
Yeah. I was wondering, why did I think Cleve was an important character as we were watching these previous seasons? I forgot that this happened. I think he's great in this episode, though. I think that helps a lot.
Yeah, he is a good actor.
He is a hateful prick in that.
Yeah.
and that scene he has with Dutch is interesting too, even if it's fairly writerly and Hannibal Lecter stuff, but it's still like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of an interesting way to write this. So
his scene with Dutch is really good there. That's why I kind of excuse it, even though that there's that type of thing. It's reared its head a couple of times in this rewatch, and I think it affects all. It's something that one of the less talked about negative effects of all of like our post Black Lives Matter revelations about policing in this country is that any threat you ever see on a cop show about like, I'll have your badge for this, just rings completely hollow now. Everything we know about like police unions and policing and the media, like, they're all worried. They're threatening Vic with you're going to lose Ronnie his job or something. But like, no, like even after everything that happened and Ronnie got sold down the river, he'd probably be placed on paid leave, be working the same job in Anaheim like 2 years down the road. Like it's just one of the many reasons to reform policing and police unions in this country is to restore some veneer of credibility to manufacture dramatic stakes in our police procedurals.
I don't like hearing that that's the most unbelievable thing about the Shield right now. I don't like that much. That's not good. I don't know. I mean, this has left planet Earth in a way at this point and has become, this high tragedy instead. So I'm fine with those things. In fact, I think they're necessary for the drama and for, at least the cosmology of morality within the world of the Shield, that there are consequences for their actions is sort of important.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I, well, again, like, not to make this all about 2008, but we view things differently at a time. I think, especially because there was a lot of that conflation of grittiness with realism. The people are like, no, this is the real shit. This is what Law and Order won't show you. And Law and Order is probably actually more realistic from like a legal standpoint, at least. But that's also what you're talking about. The idea of consequences. That's what's so important here. Like, it doesn't matter that it's realistic because it's tightly internally consistent, and everything that happens is a consequence of what has happened before and what people have decided before. And that's what makes it so just affecting dramatically.
Pretty great stuff. So I don't know. Well, we're on Dutch and Claudette. How about this serial killer kid? What do you think?
Oh, I hate this kid.
I just wasn't into this storyline at all. I
kind of like it. I kind of like it. I wish it had a better ending than Claudette just sort of yelling at the kid.
I thought the actor playing the kid, he was pretty bad. I just wasn't into him at all. And then Francis Fisher, I don't know. It's like, it's just not. It didn't work for me.
It's a miserably sad and dark plot line. I appreciate that. It's
Yeah, but we're fine with that.
Yeah, I mean that's
great.
I'm with Chris here. You're dropping wrestling knowledge here. There's a term I know from wrestling fandom called X-Pac heat. You familiar with this?
Oh yeah, yes.
I'm not. What's this?
So X-Pac was a wrestler that is a good guy at times, a bad guy at times. And there was a time when he was supposed to be a bad guy, and the crowds really hated him. But they kind of got a little confused because they thought that they're supposed to hate him because he's a bad guy, but they really were just getting annoyed that like they were pushing him too hard, and the crowd was just getting not like loving to boo and hiss him like they are with
get the fuck out of here, X-Pac.
They're annoyed to see him, and that's kind of how I feel about Lloyd. I'm supposed to hate that character, but I also just this actor, this sniveling performance he puts on. That's kind of just everything is just. I don't know, man.
Yeah, his delivery.
Maybe it's not supposed to be convincing. I don't know that he's doing a bad job, but I want it off my screen.
I'm chalking it up to a bad job. It's it's just. I mean, it's partly because a lot of this is taking place when everything with Vic and Shane is amped up to 11, and so it's like
that is the thing.
That is, I think, part of the problem.
That's the Achilles heel of any Dutch plot, though.
Well, yeah,
but it's never been more so than season 7 at the end. Sure. You see the Francis Fisher on the credits, you're like, oh, right, that's going on. Okay, she's great. I think she does a great job with a bitch of a role. That's a tough one, and you have to get just asking her to be sexually dismissed by Dutch is hard enough, and then you also have to be
the cruelest cut of all.
Then you got to have also and your son is a sociopath and is probably trying to kill you, and you don't believe it. You believe it, but you don't want to, and you're covering. That's a tall order to come in and do that for 5 minutes. And
Dutch Wagenbach thinks you're unfuckable, and also you need to talk about Kevin. Action.
Yeah, it's
the ending of that. I actually don't think is that bad because I think you're right that it struck me weird the first time around, going like, "What? That's it?" She gives him a stern talking to, and it's over. But I realized this time, oh, it's really like they kind of do resolve that because
they do.
At the end of that talking to, she catches him out, and he says something about, well, Dutch burned her clothes, and nobody had said anything about that to him at that time. So she caught him in a lie, or they didn't show all the fallout of that, but I'm okay with that because we have bigger fish to fry. And yeah, all right. So I was trying to guess we should segue to talking about Vic and Shane because there's a lot there, and we haven't hardly touched on any of it.
Well, that's the heart of this, right? I mean, it's that's what makes this show what it is. Them and Ronnie. I think it's a 3-parter
at this point,
but yeah. Shane and Vic and Shane. That's the show always. And when people say that the Shield has the best ending, like I think all three of us did in this episode, that's what we're talking about. The way these guys' plots resolve, is kind of just next level galaxy brain television writing. Like it doesn't really get better than this, like they know these guys so hard in the writer's room, and they have constructed just the perfect crucible to expose who they are and what they would do under the most extreme circumstances that seems entirely based on everything we've learned about them for 7 years in a row. It's such a I mean, you talk about dramatic payoff. Is there a better example of it, of the concept of dramatic payoff than The Shield?
No.
Maybe not. It's
no, and this relates back to what I was talking about too, is that this relationship has been the most important one on the show. It's been central to the show the entire time. And 7 seasons in now, they're still finding new depths of conflict for them to sink into and plumb in a way that, again, after 5 years, Sons of Anarchy had done a bunch of shit and realized they didn't have anything left for Jax and Clay Morrow to fight about anymore that would be as affecting as what had come before. And the Shield does not have that problem. And like I said, that they construct that crucible so effectively. The way it contrasts Vic and Shane, as the demise of the strike team just strips more and more away from them, like the results are really surprising. Like it severs Vic from his family permanently, but it brings Shane and his family closer together.
Yeah.
Which has an even more tragic result than Vic losing his family. But that stripping away, and like as things are stripped away, it exposes a core of Shane that is like vulnerable and increasingly sweet. Yeah. Well, it turns out Vic's interior is even harder and colder and emptier than we might have thought. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the thing here. Like, you talk about anti-hero TV. This is a show that, always knew who Vic was, but wanted you to enjoy him, to be on his side. Mm-hmm. In this final season, man, they strip away just systematically every single thing you could possibly like about Vic Mackey.
Like every redeeming feature.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And they do so in such a way that it is absolutely consistent with what we've known about him always. And everything that he has shown us up to this point is like, well, yes, of course he would do that now. Of course he would do that. Of course he would betray Ronnie, which is, of course, the big one. But like every choice, every bad choice he makes this show, it all comes from things that have, we've seen him do before effectively, things that used to work, old tricks, that he's relied on to survive, essentially, when it comes to Armenian Mexican gang war shit. But like, here, there's just a cost for everything, and he's always willing to pay it.
Yeah.
He's never, he's always like able to convince himself that the ends justify the means. And then he gets to the end and he's achieved his goals ostensibly in every way. And he has absolutely nothing left as a result. Like there is not a single thing left for him to live for at the end of the show. Yeah. It's just excellent writing. And yeah, they know him so well. They have established this character so well and they put him through the exact. It's a saw trap this season for Vic Mackey, essentially,
and for Shane.
Yeah. It's wonderful stuff, thrilling, upsetting, gripping, and it is kind of a thing where, like, I mean, big picture, I don't know where you feel, but I'm basically with Vic as the protagonist until like the last minute of this fucking thing, or the last couple minutes of the penultimate episode
of possible kill screen.
Yeah.
Right.
When he finally confesses to it all, implicating Ronnie.
Yep.
And you're also not just in that it's implicating Ronnie, which is just despicable, but also just in like you hear it all and you're just like, oh yeah, I know all that about him. He sucks.
Well,
He's what a piece of shit.
Well, and what's also so great about all that is that he's basically doing that because in order to protect Corinne, that's what he thinks, even though Corinne's already sold him out. It's like, oh man, it's so I love that aspect.
Yeah, the dramatic irony abounds.
Yep.
And beyond that, like we've also established like repeatedly and decisively this season, no, he is a cancer on his family. Like he is an absolute destructive force. And the worst thing that could happen to them is him staying in their life. And right. His kid with Danny, too. Like, everything he does just puts them in harm's way and ruins them. You know, like, it's... and so he might think he's a great father or think he cares about his kids, but we have repeatedly seen that he, you know, they are not his priority. In the reality of who they are. Maybe they're his priority just in sort of a Walter White kind of like, I'm doing this for my family kind of way. You know, it's kind of the precursor to that, really. It's the same basic idea.
Yeah. And this is an interesting thing to me is that the idea of like, okay, how much Vic is certainly, I think, delusional. I think he you know, lies to himself a lot about what his priorities really are.
Oh, always.
But I don't think that means he's like his principles are not sincere necessarily, and I think it's maybe just something that he believes his lies.
He believes what he's saying to himself. Yeah.
Well, but okay, this is something that it's a bugaboo of mine. I think we're really bad at, especially the more online you get at recognizing the difference between being a hypocrite and a fraud. And like, yeah, people are hypocrites, and like, but just because somebody says that they are, a guy maybe says he's a male feminist, but just supports women or whatever. But then you find out you dig something up from 15 years ago, he treated this girlfriend badly or whatever. Like that doesn't mean he doesn't think women should get equal pay or whatever. It just means that he doesn't always live up to the principles he has. And I don't know, maybe growing up Catholic, I was just very inured to this idea that like, yeah, nobody lives the principles of their religion constantly, but that doesn't necessarily mean people don't believe them. Like the closeted gay preacher does really think that being gay is going to send him to hell, but that doesn't mean that he's not still going to bone down with a male prostitute somewhere. Like that doesn't mean he doesn't believe it. I think Vic's principles are real and that he really does want to protect the team. He wants to protect his family. He wants to serve justice to the real scum of Farmington, that are doing the real damage that he tells himself. But of course, self-preservation trumps all of that when it comes down to it. Like when the noose really tightens, he abandons all these other principles just one by one. I've seen it, compared to locking off compartments on a submarine that's sinking. And it's like, okay, big deal. That's probably true of everybody. Like we all have certain priorities that will trump others if we were to face circumstances as extreme as what the strike team's creating for themselves. What I think makes Vic such a fascinating and monstrous figure is how immediately and totally he abandons the prior principles once he decides that it's been preempted. Like he'll talk a big game about what all the damage Pezuela is going to do to the community. But if he has to cut a deal with Antoine to stay free for one more day, he will commit to that decision fully and forget that like so quickly. And that I think he totally means it every time he gives the one for all and all for one speech about loyalty to the team. But once he decides he needs to sell Ronnie down the river, he is immediately like sneering about like, I'll string him along until this is done. Like that's the sharp turns around those corners is what makes him so frightening to me.
Man, well, that's what makes the that ending so incredibly powerful. The where they arrest Ronnie in front of him, and he's just like, "I'm sorry," and Ronnie said, "You're sorry? It's
Goddamn
so
sorry.
You're goddamn sorry. Oh man,
Snell's really good in that. Like it's one time he gets to really like act.
Oh,
He gets to underplay a lot of things
he's
before.
always so. I mean, that's what makes that scene like so hard to watch. Is that he's, his character's basically been measured the whole way, and so he just finally loses it. I mean, I really love the scene that Vic and Ronnie have kind of before all that, where Ronnie, first tells Vic what's happened to Shane and his family, and it's like, Ronnie is sad about it, but there's also kind of that relief that he has because it's like, hey, we're kind of in the clear now. I think everything is going to be okay.
He plays that so well. The catharsis that he's going through there. It's so, oh God.
Yeah, he's crying. Like we never thought we'd see Ronnie cry. But
I mean, he basically he has two emotional reactions to this news, and he plays them both perfectly at the same time, and it's really good.
And they're both 3/4 of the way into the series finale. That's how long he had to wait to play these big emotions. But yeah, no, it's great that, I mean, that's another great sort of turning point. That, I mean, Iceman Ronnie has kind of been a thing, even from like the opening episode of the season. Like the big shock there is Ronnie executing the Armenian assassin.
It's great
in super cold blood, and then being taken aback by saying like, I thought it'd be hard, and it wasn't. And like, man, this guy is even colder. But when it comes time, once Shane's on the run, and Ronnie had been the one who wouldn't let Vic back out of killing Shane in animal control. But once he's on the run, Ronnie is the one hesitating about like, but are we really going to kill his pregnant wife too? Like, and Vic's the one who's like, she's not an innocent, man. He brought her into this. That's their choice. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, kind of shaken Jackson's by that. Too young to testify. Is the reason they don't have to kill Jackson. Vic, you're a bad man. Great stuff. But
so I mean, it's possible to me. The show's not really a show where I think of it in terms of like, oh, I have a top 10 episodes of The Shield. I don't think of it in terms of episodes. There's the couple that I know, being like the season 5 finale and the last 2 seasons, Parasite, I guess, the last 2 episodes of the final season.
Right.
Possible Kill Stream and Family Meeting.
Yep.
A lot of the times, like I don't know what the earlier episodes are called because a lot of them are named after like the B or C plots. They're it's or some reference to what Dutch's case of the week is or something. And that's you don't remember where those fall in any particular season.
I know
Kill Screen.
Cherry Poppers is season 1. I know that much.
Yeah, of course, yes.
Yeah. But I think Possible Kill Screen is up there for one of the best episode titles in TV history, I think. It is, I mean, for reference's sake, based on the documentary The King of Kong about the best Donkey Kong players in the world. And how there's a thing in the Donkey Kong community where if you play the game long enough, the game just kind of blitzes and crashes because it can't handle how many points you've gotten anymore. Like you can break the game by just surviving long enough in it. And that is so exactly what is going on with Vic in this final 2 episodes that he's going to outlast everybody to the point where the game just breaks and he gets immunity.
And you have to be familiar with King of Kong to understand that, which is incredible. Yeah. I think I love that. You've seen that, right, Chris?
Or have access to the internet.
No, it's a great documentary. Love it. Yes,
an exceptional documentary. Yes.
But man, we kind of jumped to the finale without talking, like the confession scene. I mean, in Possible that ends in Possible Kill Screen is just one of the best scenes in TV history. One of the best, I mean,
for sure,
as an acting showcase for Chickless. That just, I mean, plenty of people point out that 45-second pause before he starts confessing, he just seems to age by 10 or 15 years.
Well, it's him having to let go of all his self-delusions. It's him, he has to actually just drop all that shit.
Yeah.
And he's forced into the position of having, and also just as good as Chickless is in that scene, the construction of us getting to that scene is immaculate. It is incredible. Like
Yes.
just the conceit of this I have no idea if this is how they do this sort of thing, but like the conceit, they're like, okay, you are now going on tape and you will be immune from for everything that you report, that you talk about until we stop recording. And that is just so perfect for dramatic potential for this particular show. It almost feels like it has to be made up. Yeah, you're a lawyer, Al. Is that a thing that people do? Is that a real part of
I am not a criminal lawyer, but it is in criminal defendants, you generally have something called a proffer session that is set up to avoid this scenario. You can sort of lay out the types of things you will be confessing to, so that the prosecution doesn't get stuck holding a thing of, oh crap, we pardoned Pablo Escobar in order to, pick up somebody for jaywalking. In this case, I think that dramatically the whole setup here is that he's pressing them
the timeline
to say the timeline is such that you have to cut these corners to do this for me, because you have to have this done now or never. And I can accept that for dramatic purposes, because the trauma of it is so.
Yeah,
the Shield definitely traffics in artificial deadlines. How many times is there a manhunt that has to be resolved by 5 p.m.?
Yeah,
somehow.
I don't know if this kind of an immunity deal is at all realistic, but they certainly portray it way more realistic than immunity deals were on 24. 24, they were just throwing them out like Tez. It was basically everybody Jack Bauer would cash. I want an immunity deal. All right, we'll fax it over. It was just like it was always.
Going back to the thing of the realism is not as important as the internal consistency and the dramatic results of it. That it makes everything that happens and all the fallout be the result of the character's actions and choices, and that's kind of great.
I really like Laurie Holden in this scene too. I think, obviously it's a big showcase for Chickless, but I don't know. I think the look on her face during the whole thing is just perfect. I think she's really good, just with her looks, and and then just the great little exchange at the end. It's the ultimate like TV exchange. Do you have any idea what you've done to me? I've done worse. It's just perfect.
It's such a great moment. So, it's pulpy, but it's also like chilling. Like, yeah, like because there's this moment, and he, by the next episode, we'll have sort of reestablished a few of his delusions about himself. But in that moment, he has just completely embraced that I am the Black Hat. He's like, yeah, you know what? You ran up against Vic Mackey, and this is all that happened to you. You should count yourself fucking lucky.
Yeah.
A moment for Laurie Holden. Where people feel about Laurie Holden?
If you've got a really thankless role, she's a good candidate for it.
I think she was good for what she's asked to do. I thought she was perfectly fine.
I think she's really good. I think she's great in this, actually. I think this is the best Laurie Holden performance. Olivia Murray in The Shield.
Oh, probably. But I guess I've seen her in this in The Mist.
Yeah,
I watched a
she
couple
was
episodes of The Walking Dead, but don't remember them.
Mel Gibson's wife in Dragged Across Concrete. And she was actually pretty good. Not very many scenes, but she was pretty good in that.
She's had a number of of roles, romantic interests and things like The Majestic. I think she's in most Frank Darabont movies and stuff. She's really bad in The Walking Dead. It's unfortunate. It's kind of like they gave her like just a pile of shit to eat, and she's a professional, so she eats it, and but it's not great to watch, and it's also the kind of thing where I've already seen you eat that pile of shit in The Walking Dead, and I can't not think about that. But she's good in this. I think she's really good. I think this character is well written. She comes across as just like, well, initially he's like, well, we need a girl for Vic to talk to this season. Like who's his new girlfriend going to be? And immediately they start adding new things and twists, like that she's compromised by Pezuela's blackmail box and all these other things, and then delivers us to her function in the last 2 episodes, which is perfect, and she does perfectly.
Yeah, I think the only problem with the character is you kind of prefer that she had been introduced a little earlier. Maybe if you could iron out that run of season 6 into season 7 that she could have been Hernan's handler or something if we had known back then. But you work with what you can in the show. And part of the, the strength of the show too. I think we talk about this as it's so immaculately structured for this great final payoff, but it's not like they had a 7-season plan that they were methodically building to.
That's almost what's so impressive. Does.
Yeah. The way, how much it's able to tie back together is incredible. And my favorite moment of her performance, actually, I think, is in the finale when she goes to see Claudette, and Claudette asks her to give Corinne witness protection. Yeah. And she's like, why the fuck would I do anything for this guy and his family at this point? Do you have any, or any of you? Because he's pissed at Claudette too for how did you guys let this stuff happen?
Yeah.
Before it fell in my lap. And Claudette just lays out to her that, she helped us and we owe it to her. And also it'll hurt Vic and you want to do anything you can to hurt him. And then she just has this look like, okay.
That's right. Yeah, good enough. She's fine in it. But yeah, I think now maybe is kind of the time where we really got to go deep into Shane. I mean, we really, we've kind of been avoiding it to some degree, but man, especially in this finale, it's everything with Shane. Oh my God.
Because we're talking about everything else, and for this last immaculate stretch of the show, he is isolated from everybody else.
Yeah,
they have to do a little bit of contrivance to give him a scene with Tina, a scene with Billings, and he can do an occasional phone call with Vic. But of course, when you have fucking Goggins, you can sell an awful lot just on his face. The relationship with Mara, astoundingly effective for how little development it's had, and how I think Michelle Hicks is actually pretty good in this season, but how that is not a powerhouse actress that we know from 100 other things or anything. I mean,
she's so completely that character, she's Mara.
Yeah.
And we get who Mara is very much at this point. And I mean, look, I never really warmed to these characters, even in their most extremes. I remember initially when I watched this originally, I was like, I fucking hope they don't get away. That was my attitude through whole season 7. I was like, I hope they don't slip the net. I don't like that. And but now
I never thought that was going to happen.
Yeah, well, it clearly wasn't going to happen. But it seemed like they were on a bit of a redemption arc because just of how desperate they were and what that was bringing out in them. But of course, that is not what the Shield was up to. They were doing something else very different the whole time. And yeah, well, the way that resolves, my God, it's the sort of thing that just really sticks with you. I don't know. We need to talk about anything before we get to the end of it.
Well, I would say
family meeting stuff. Yeah,
I would say you got to bring up the last phone call between Vic and Shane. I mean, that is that's so good. I mean. When now Shane knows. I mean, Vic is just so cocky, and he's just so. I cut my deal. Everything's hunky dory over here. No worries. And just kind of the look on Shane's face as he's just realizing what's going on, and then Vic going into his whole thing about I'm gonna go look your kids up every year, and I'm gonna muss their hair and tell them all about mom and dad. I'll send you a postcard from Space Mountain. It's just
that last line, by the way.
Yeah,
send you a postcard from Space Mountain. I think that's my favorite line from the Shield. To be honest,
it could be.
It's so good.
It's the nail in the coffin. That's what drives him over the edge to do what he does. Even prior to that, it's so unnecessary because Vic's cut the strings at that point. He says, and he could just not take that call. But if he didn't twist the knife, maybe
definitely that as presented, that is the impetus. Just like I'm not going to abandon my children to Vic Mackey.
Yeah. But there's even that. I mean, Goggins' performance is so good when they're on the run, and he's so getting increasingly desperate and high. But there's something all not sweet, like so sad about.
Yeah.
In that final extremity, even in the finale, Shane's calling up Vic to try and extort him into helping them escape. But that's his thing. And he's his last resort is still to look to Vic to bail him out, even as they are completely, mortal enemies at that point.
Yeah.
But he's still, even as they are trying to kill each other and all this stuff, Shane's ultimate solution is to look to Dad to fix things for him. And then he gets that Space Mountain line in response.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Just the tangled web of circumstance and crossed paths and misunderstandings and total understandings that make up the final acts of this show is it's as immaculately plotted as anything in I don't know, Shakespeare. It's just so fucking good. It's I don't know. I'm using the word immaculate a lot this episode.
I'm using restraint a lot, which these are not words you associate that are in the Shield word cloud, but
well, it's really eerie. Goggins is it's so eerie in the scenes after he's had the phone call with Vic, and he basically, I think at that point, has made the decision of kind of what he's going to do. So it's eerie when when they head back to their apartment, and he sees his neighbor, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And then when he goes into that convenience store, and he's talking to the girl working there, and it's like he's just having this.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
gives her $100 or whatever. And it's like, oh man.
Yeah, and just the way
he's got that suicide euphoria.
He's got the whole, he knows exactly where he's going from here. He knows his end game, so it's all the stress that he's had the last few days on the run. It's like that's all gone now. And man, God, he does such a good job conveying that.
Can I throw another thing out there? It's not performance so much, but just the writing of the suicide note is really perfectly done.
It's great.
Like that has to be the most tempting thing in the world for like a professional writer to overdo things with this sort of final statement on the show's most important characters and relationship. To do something that wouldn't be true to.
It is that though.
It is that, but it wouldn't be true to Shane's character to be like a bunch of florid, egg-headed prose. He's writing with more clarity than we're used to from Shane, but it's kind of believable. Like there's a bluntness there
Shane's
that doesn't
voice.
betray his level of intellectual sophistication. And it sort of just fits the show's approach to weighty material really well. Just that kind of look it head on and slap it in the face.
Yeah. Family annihilation. That's where we end. And it is it's the most earned possible thing. It is it's brutal. Now, I had a memory coming back to this. My explicit memory was we get him, he goes home, and he says, "Okay, everybody, family meeting." And then we don't hear from him. And we find out what happens when Claudette reveals it to Vic. That was my memory. That's not it, though. There's a whole scene where they discover the bodies. I was just like, oh my God. I don't remember. Shane shoots himself on camera. I was like, oh my God. How did I memory hold this stuff? And I think it's because
the scene when he goes back to the barn is so heavy.
I think that's what it is. Is it just hits like such a sledgehammer at the end, even when which you do need to know, honestly, for the all the things for the Ronnie scene that we were talking about. But it's just so fucking good in that final moments there at the barn. That's the impression that I left with, and even more powerful than Shane's actual suicide is the reporting of it. And the effect it has on Vic. Yeah.
Claudette putting out the photos of them to Vic, and then Vic breaking the camera, because the camera's been such a huge aspect of the show the whole time. The way that he's got his swagger, and he's just like bill me, and then the comeback from Claudette is fine, first payments due now, and it's just brutal.
Even just the moment where she makes him go around to the perp side of the interrogation table.
That's
pretty great too.
And then just having him walk out of that place with the entire the major cast plus basically the extended extra ensemble of the barn. Just watching him and knowing who he is. It's perfect. It's the perfect ending. Everything that happens after that is pretty good too, but that's the moment that you've been waiting for 7 years for, essentially. Everything that goes down at the barn for the last scene there. And
when he's lost the respect of softball registration cop, that's when it's all over.
It hits harder than you would ever imagine it would. You know, it's like there's no way to have like pre-gamed this and been like come up with a better version of this. I guess there's nothing that you wanted to see that you didn't get. In fact, you were surprised by how much you get.
No, and if you're a basic bro trying to think of what the heaviest, I mean, maybe. And this is maybe what Sons of Anarchy falls into eventually too, is that you're trying to come up with the heaviest possible money for the show. You're probably going to have more people go down in a hail of bullets. But this finds the right level of restraint where it doesn't really feel like it's holding back, like pulling any punches. But it's also not giving us the catharsis of the hail of bullets or letting us off the hook. In the way, when we talked about the end of The Sopranos too, that was the thing there.
Well, I'm saying what happens to Ronnie is, so much worse than if he had been gunned down in some kind of scene in this finale. It's like, it's just, I can't even get over just, I can't even think of another scene that reminds me of that Ronnie scene into where it just the way it plays off. It's just so unique. I can't even think of anything close to it.
I mean, I think you got to go like some sort of extreme horror film or something to, just like,
I guess.
Okay, well, we can't touch you, so we're going to do this to your friend kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's, and you feel like at the same time that it is, that what you're watching is just and correct. That's the crazy part of it. Like even as it is just sort of just wrenching to experience it with Ronnie, it's also just sort of like, yeah, that's perfect. That's the correct ending here. This is what should happen.
Yeah, as a little bit of an aside, shame on Hulu because their thumbnail for the finale is basically Ronnie being arrested.
Oh, come on.
That's right.
What the hell? What the hell, Hulu? Terrible.
That would have really pissed me off if I hadn't known that was coming. Yeah.
God, awful, awful.
All right, we have final thoughts on The Shield as a whole, or the series finale.
I mean, I was saying, I was wondering how this would play now that I know how it ends. I know the journey, I know the arc, and it's just as excellent as it was. I mean, this has the most deserved reputation ever. I think this is the best ending to any TV show. I think in the end, I have to say that. Like, and there are other shows that have very good ones. Even a show like 6 Feet Under it's famous for its great ending, and it does have a great ending. And honestly, all these sort of anti-hero TV shows kind of had at least pretty good endings. Sopranos, Breaking Bad, Mad Men all have really good endings, but this one stands tall above them all. I think this is how you do it, And I think the reason that people, well, at this point, 15 years later after it ended, the whole show's good, but you're really depriving yourself if you haven't seen this ending. It's the best one. And I think, I don't think there's much debate for me. I think this is it, without question, for a TV show, like, period.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Yes. I have nothing even more else to say about the finale. I totally agree. It's the best one I can think of. I mean, I can't even really think of like just a comedy, in terms of just judging a comedy on its own. I can't think of a great finale. I mean, everyone brings up the old Bob Newhart show, but that's, I'm just really showing my age bringing that up. But there's really nothing. There's nothing that comes close to what The Shield pulled off. It's incredible.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about there, John, too, about it being the best of all of them. And there are other great finales. The Sopranos finale, I think, is great. 6 Feet Under finale is great, but they lack the cohesiveness of The Shield. Because they're more loosely plotted. That there's not that sense you get here that I think is what we kind of crave from a long-running TV show, especially. One of the things we want more than anything, more than to have justice served or our morality.
We don't really want that.
Well, okay. I mean, whatever idea of justice is, it doesn't have to be the Hays Code version of it. But we want Ronnie to go away to get away with it because that feels more just somehow intellectually. But more than any of that, we want to feel like all the time we invested here was worth it. There was all building to something. And stuff like The Sopranos, Mad Men, 6 Feet Under, they're a little too diffuse to have a finale that really ties the whole room together that way. And on the flip side, you can have your porridge too hot, you can have your porridge too cold. You can have something like Breaking Bad that ties off every single string there possibly could be in a way that still feels a little vaguely unsatisfying, to me anyway.
Hey, there's room for an El Camino after it, so maybe not every string.
Yeah, but thematically, it closes everything off. But to agree that it feels a little too neat, maybe, for what had come before. And I don't think any show has ever hit the sweet spot the way that The Shield has. They say that a thing that they say about like plot twists is that, or endings generally, is that ideally they should feel surprising yet inevitable. And The Shield, right up to the last episode, like the Breaking Bad felt inevitable, but not really surprising by the end. And The Shield, right to the end, was shocking and surprising, and also everything feels not predictable, but totally inevitable once you get to the end. And no show has ever done a better job of that, in my opinion.
Yep. It's an A+ if ever there was one. This ending. It's such a payoff for 7 years of show. It is it really takes you everywhere you want to go with this guy. I don't know. I feel like nobody was like demanding Vic's head on a tray, at the end in the way they were even Tony Soprano or Walter White. But this is the most satisfying resolution for an anti-hero, and it is by just cutting everything out from under him. Walter White even gets his on his own terms kind of, finale.
Right.
Exactly. And, he has to confront some things about himself, and it's not ideal, but basically he goes out on a win. Vic does not go out on a win. Vic,
No.
Well, on paper, on paper, he achieves the goal he was after.
So good.
And yet we see that. I mean, one of the great things about the confession scene even is that it makes him sit so still. And that's the one thing that Vic Mackey can't live with. Is he's not a total sociopath.
He's a shark.
This stuff will catch up to him. Yeah. If he stops swimming. And that's the cell they construct for him pretty masterfully. So,
and that is the end of the show too. The very end, I think, him pulling the gun out of the safe box.
Yeah.
He's got to move. He's moving forward. He's doing something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Where do you guys think this ends? He's got this job at ICE that it's going to be some sort of form of torture for him. Does he complete his 3 years? Does he go on the run? Is he off to Mexico? Is he chasing off his family? I'm glad that that's not answered. And I kind of don't want to answer, but at the same time, I don't know. If you give it some thought, what do you think this guy does? We know him so well at this point.
I think he does do his 3 years, and then after that, he's basically looking up Carl Weathers and do you have a job for me?
Oh, okay. So just the worst. Okay.
Yeah. That's
I think the world of the show has the world of the show has taught me that he is going to find a way to get out of it and continue to sort of thrive while also becoming just a worse and worse person as time goes on. But I guess one way to put this is we talked about how death would be better than some of the resolution that Vic and Ronnie get in some ways. And the other, obvious route for an anti-hero is it's death or prison, right? And I feel like prison with Antoine Mitchell would be a less severe punishment for Vic than the office prison.
Oh yeah,
that Olivia puts him in. Because if he was in prison with Antoine, he would be fighting for his life every day and still moving and making deals and fighting. And again, he wouldn't have to.
Ronnie, however, would have thrived in the office prison, I think.
But he won't. Ronnie would have been fine there. But they don't get that, and Ronnie would not be will not do as well in prison.
No, Ronnie's getting tortured to death. Ronnie is definitely getting tortured to death. They drop Antoine Mitchell's name in the last episode because they want you to remember that. Yeah.
That's great. I don't know. I mean,
they call it Antoine Mitchellville.
They do.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I put together on the message board a while back a pitch for what I think a Shield revival would be. And I'm not saying that it's good, or I mean, it's fine. It would be as good as any of these other revivals. I'm not saying they should do it. But it had to do with him basically hanging around ICE until the Trump era when ICE actually got worse than him. And that ended up providing him an out to get back to a real police department. and sort of get into new shenanigans and get himself caught up on body cams and whatnot. And then eventually just getting a pardon like Joe Arpaio to get away with it a second time.
I got to admit that's kind of interesting. I wouldn't hate it. I mean, I'd kind of hate it, but I'd also be like, I got to watch that. Got to see how they pull that off. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
I had things for Dutch to do too. I'll send it to you if you want me to. But anyway, like I'm done. I don't want any more of these revivals.
Yeah, this is a show I really don't want them to do anything else with. Even though, of course, I'd be right there watching. I just put it to bed.
Yeah,
don't fuck with the perfect ending. Yeah.
What were we just saying? Perfect ending. Perfect.
Yeah, I will say. I mean, I know we're kind of reaching the end here, and I feel like we're probably not going to do an episode on the Shield PlayStation 2 game. I don't think that's in the cards for us.
Probably
but
not.
I'm not uninterested.
Yeah, I did dig through and find my copy of the Shield PlayStation 2 game, and I just want to take 15 seconds to just read the little summary on the back of the Shield PlayStation 2 game just for fun. So here we go. I'm just going to go. You are Detective Vic Mackey. Experience the gritty recreation of the controversial television hit The Shield. Command the elite strike team police unit through 15 levels and 33 playable areas of the crime-ridden streets. Engage in the perilous police work of raiding crack dens and criminal hideouts while taking down the notorious Bizlot and one-niner gangbangers. How you choose to enforce the law can be left out of the police report, as long as you keep your trail and the streets clean. Walk the razor's edge of the law. That's it.
You know, I doubt that's a good game. I could kind of imagine a good game. You know, I could kind of see, you know.
It sounds like you can't quite drive your partners to suicide in it.
Well, it does. They have also... Next to they also have little blurbs about like what you can do in the game, and so one of the little blurbs is turn in contraband to keep internal affairs off your back, or place it in your personnel locker to build up your retirement fund.
See, this sounds fun. That sounds okay. I mean, you know what? You could do a BioWare version of the Shield, and I would be like into it. You know,
or is it more of a Rockstar game?
Squads.
The company that makes it,
because like if Grand Theft Auto is Sons of Anarchy, the video game, is there a version of Grand Theft Auto where you play as the police, but like the dirty police? Is that?
That's what they should have done. That's the game right there. I don't even know this company. It's Aspyr, ASPYR. They're not really not in my wheelhouse, but they somehow got this license and they delivered
I'm
a game.
100% going to look up video play of this on YouTube. I'm going to see what this looks like here. I got to know.
All right, so stay tuned for that, I guess.
That was kind of okay.
In the meantime,
if you want to do an episode, I guess we can do it.
Well, I was wondering, we've done it now, The Sopranos and The Shield. Do we have to like do Breaking Bad now to round out the big anti-hero trilogy?
Well, I don't. I mean, I don't know. I mean, at some point, perhaps that came along later. I don't know. I've had a lot of fun. This year has been like kind of defined by me rewatching The Shield. It's been probably some of the most entertaining stuff I've done this year.
No, well, Breaking Bad, that would definitely be a logical next step, because that was the show that sort of took the mantle, because The Shield and Sopranos, they kind of ended at the same time, and I feel like that mantle went to Breaking Bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think if anything, The Shield is kind of underrated in the inspiration it was for Breaking Bad. Like it.
Oh, sure.
A lot of the things that Breaking Bad does, The Shield did first, and very well as well. It ended better.
Oh yeah.
If you enjoy Breaking Bad, The Shield is probably something you should watch. It's all the same stuff, kind of. It's the show it most resembles, and it's wonderful. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like if anyone's listening to this, the end of our episode or season 7 coverage after a year, and you've got to this point without actually watching The Shield, you've already fucked up. So
yes, exactly.
But you should still watch it. It's good, even if you know what's going to happen.
Exactly. I mean, it's a crime to spoil it for people because the twists and turns and the surprises are so good, like I said. But also because they're done so well, and inevitably, when you go back to it, it becomes less of a roller coaster and more of a Greek tragedy, and it still works on that level too.
All right. We are probably within spitting distance, if not over the longest episode in Framework's history. So we should probably wrap this up now, right? We got kids on laps. We got lot. I mean, I don't know. We could go on another hour, I fear. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I think we've done it here. And I guess last thoughts on our year of Shield here. This is it's been a blast, a lot of fun. I don't know. I feel like we probably gotta, it's gonna be hard to hit this bar with another show next year. So we'll see if we won't even try. But this has been super rewarding and everything I could have hoped for. If anything, my opinion of the show has only increased this year.
Same, only gone up.
That echoes my thoughts. Yep.
So thanks for listening, everybody. Very, very. Thanks for listening to this whole thing, if you did, and if not, again, you fucked up. You should have just watched the show. Okay, that's it.